Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. So excited to be here with you today. My name is Scott Edinburgh, and for those who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I'm the founder of Personal MBA Coach. We're going to be talking today about packaging your story and going over a lot of exciting things, from advice on thinking through the story. We'll actually discuss essays for some top schools and talk through how to think about those. We'll throw in a few pitfalls, things to do, things not to do. And I'm lucky to be joined by Milland, a former, can I say former? I think still kind of current client. And I'll let him introduce himself in a minute. I'll talk a bit about his experiences and how he's trying to make a tough decision about what schools to go to now. So a little bit about us. Kind of the top ranked consultant of all time on some other leading websites. We've been invited to speak at the annual GMAT conference in the past. Overall, we have a 96% success rate at Personal MBA Coach. That said, last year, 100% of our clients applying to 6 or more schools got in, and we got $6.5 million in scholarships. Boutique and family operated. We run the company 7 days a week. And one thing that's a little bit different about working with us versus maybe some other providers out there is you have the opportunity of working with myself, the founder, or a top former admissions director. We don't have any junior staff or recent MBA grads or anything like that. A pretty robust project management system, which I won't go into all the details today, but if you're interested in working with us, feel free to reach out. A bit about myself: I went to MIT for undergrad, studied economics and business at Sloan, was a teaching assistant for one of the MBA courses as an undergrad. Then I worked in consulting at Deloitte and did mostly mergers and acquisitions work across a variety of industries, and went to Wharton for the MBA. Over 16 years of experience, been running this company since 2008. And I'm on the board of directors for AGAC. That's the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. We do a lot of different things with AdCom directors throughout the year. I'm joined by MJ Shores, a director on our team who's a former Wharton and UCLA admissions director. And so for any of you who want to work with a former AdCom director, she's there. And then also, so Erin, Edinburgh one, my sibling is a Yale MBA grad and used to work at Bain, and kind of runs the whole company, with me, manages our whole team. So a bit about us. We have some really top quality interviewers. So a large team of interviewers. All of our folks used to interview at different top MBA programs, and so you're not just having a consultant or somebody else, prep you. You're actually having a former interviewer, and then we have some of the leading editors out there. So all of our editors have very high level degrees, at least a master's degree or higher, from top Ivy schools, Harvard, PhDs, Columbia, masters of PhDs in journalism. And so you have one main consultant and one editor that you would work with throughout the whole process. And a pretty extensive knowledge base as far as like guides, downloadables, tips. I spend a lot of my time talking with admissions. I'm actually talking with the head of admissions for a top 10 school this afternoon. Talk about their new essays and some advice and other things about the program. And so we take a lot of that knowledge and sort of pass that on to folks like you. So actually, before we talk about other folks, and I should have added you on this slide, Milland, but to be honest, my team created this a while ago. So I'll let Milland introduce himself briefly and talk a little bit about his experience with us.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. So my name's Milland. Like you said, I'm just graduated from the University of Michigan. And so I was a client of Scott's for deferred MBA programs. And as it says, kind of in my nameplate there, was lucky enough to be admitted to Booth, Kellogg, and Columbia. And, when I was working with Scott, the first thing that I really appreciated was he was realistic. On our 30-minute free consultation, I asked him, I'm looking to apply to those three and, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton. Like, is this realistic? Do I have even a shot at getting in? And I appreciated that he wasn't just trying to upsell me. He told me that, for a Harvard and Stanford, given my profile, it was going to be very difficult. And so, I could tell that he wasn't trying to just, get me to pay him, frankly, and I appreciated that. And after that, I think what I worked with Scott personally also, and so we worked together to create a story for me and how I would go about portraying myself in my applications. And I think that was really what um, the really the far and away best part of the experience, and something that I couldn't have done on my own. I had done extracurriculars in college and things that I had liked, but Scott was able to frame it and piece it together in a way that it made it very, very appealing to an MBA program, and really talk with me about also my long-term career goals. Again, things that I really needed someone's help with, and it was great. And when it came to the essays, Scott has a great team of editors who, work with you to kind of refine and fine tune your essays. I think from the prompts of the essays, they only give you, about 20% of what they want to hear, and the other 80% and more you can get from Scott and his team of editors. And so that was also really helpful. And a couple other things. He was great at keeping me honest when I kind of slipped up and got busy with other things, reminding me that, hey, you need to do this. And I personally needed and appreciated that. And also, he was very, very, very accessible, answered questions, on weekends, almost always within 24 hours. So, for someone like me who always had a couple quick questions, it was really, really helpful to, have Scott respond in a timely fashion. And the interviewers were also great, very, very clearly qualified, and spent time going over each question with me. Many went over time with me, my allotted time, and also agreed to respond to email questions again that were over my allotted time. So really couldn't say enough great things about the support staff as well.
Awesome. Well, look, thanks so much. Really appreciate that context, those kind of words, and yeah, congrats again on the excellent news. So, and thanks so much for coming today.
Thanks, Scott. Have a good one.
So yeah, if anyone has any questions for Millen, feel free to reach out. To me, I'm happy to kind of pass them along. So this is a little bit of some success that we saw this year. Our clients get a lot of scholarships, and often it's for more schools than just one, right? So it's not $6.5 million, and everyone's just getting that from all one school. So folks that got Columbia Booth, Yale 330. Clients getting 160 from and this one is actually a good amount of that was from Wharton. So Wharton, MIT Booth. So just a whole lot of different scholarships. Now, no, you don't see Harvard on here. We have folks get a full ride there, but they don't give any merit money. So when you're looking at Harvard and Stanford, there's some money for Stanford. You have to apply to those scholarships separately. There's a little bit for Wharton. We have some people. Last year I had a guy. It was just like a white guy in finance that got $100,000 to Wharton. So it happens, but more so you're looking at the kind of Booth, Kellogg, and on down. Okay, so as you package your MBA application, right, consider the role of all the key components. So resume, essays, rec letters. These are three key things, and we'll chat through the MBA resume now. And questions, I'll take as many questions as you have. So just feel free to ask them, type them into the box. I'm screen sharing, so you don't really see the questions while doing this, but if you type them in, we'll get to them all at the end. And if I pause a little bit, I'm slightly still recovering from COVID, so apologies. So professional versus the MBA resume, right? What's the difference? The professional resume, it tries to sell your ability to do your work, right? And so there's skills that you're going to write. There's keywords. There's experiences that they're looking for. Like it's going to be a super specific resume. Business schools don't really care like what exact skills or experiences you have, as long as they are like good ones, right? So it's not to say that, to be accepted to Wharton, you have to have this amount of like analytical background to your job. I mean, you could be a middle school history teacher and get it to Wharton. Like there's no specific requirement. You just have to be really good at what you're doing. And so as you think about this, right, provide evidence that you've been successful, that you've demonstrated leadership, that you're doing the job better than others. And so if you can remove some of that technical jargon, that might help you to showcase yourself in a better light for the MBA or other grad school applications. So we do a lot of the dual degree programs. We'll do law school and public policy and, talk some about education, dual degree yesterday for Stanford. This is a template. Okay, kind of boring. You've got the company up top, city, city, state. If you're in the U.S. and then dates here, and then bullets, right? So have 1 or 2 lines for most bullets, maybe 3 for 1 or 2, but you don't want to have a whole paragraph. And a lot of the space should be devoted to experience. Sometimes I see resumes and it's like, okay, the experience is like 25%, and then there are all these activities and awards and yada yada. And at the end of the day, it's like nobody cares. Like you're applying to business school, so the job is going to be the most important thing. Now, granted, we do have extracurriculars and volunteers down here at the bottom. It's nice to have that. It's nice to have skills, but don't take up half the section showing your college and your extracurriculars. Use most of this to talk about your work experience. And even for Millen, Millen was a deferred applicant, and so he applied, in college. But even so, a lot of the resumes showed experience, so like internships. So key aspects of the strong resume: you want to highlight your strengths, show leadership, measurable results if possible. Now, I realize it might not be possible for everybody to have measurable results, and that's okay. But when it's possible, let's make these results as measurable as you can. And at the end of the day, prove that you did work better than somebody else. You don't need to separate everything by project or by year, and it doesn't need to be an even resume. Meaning, if you have like 2 jobs, it doesn't have to be 50% one job, 50% the other. If the first job wasn't so good, just put a few bullets and focus most of the work on your most impressive experiences. Okay, so I don't remember the last resume I've seen that doesn't need a lot of work. And again, it's not because they're bad. It's just because the MBA resume is different from professional resume. So take some time, focus on the resume. Try to not have like multiple pages, bolded. No, nothing bolded. Don't use the bold feature at all. Short bullets, too little white space. The goal is not to maximize the real estate. Sometimes I see resumes where there's so much text, I don't see a lot of white, and it just hurts the eyes. At the end of the day, these are humans reading your resume, and they'll probably spend like a minute, maybe 30 seconds on it. So don't write too much content. Okay, rec letters. So, start to think about your recommendation letter strategy and detail, right? The number one most important thing, if you're dozing off or doing something else, it's like ding, 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 ding. One thing to listen to: ask somebody who will write an amazing letter. That's all that I actually care about. This other stuff is still supportive, it's still helpful, but the content of the letter is really good. And is really important. And the reason is because everybody has good letters. So it's not like you have the A+ letter and the A and then the C and the D. And it's like, well, if you're at least an A- or above, you'll get in. Like nobody has a B rec letter. They're all A's. And so within these really strong letters, the specifics are going to be important. Title doesn't matter. It literally just doesn't matter. Unless you're getting somebody to write the letter who is like president of a country or, CEO of like a super large, like if it's a very, very influential person, maybe, but should I ask the manager versus the senior manager versus the senior direct vice president manager? It doesn't matter. What matters is that they're writing things that are clear, and they're able to compare you to others. Also, the time period is important because the schools will ask them how long they've worked with you. And if they say, 2 months, okay, that's not as good as, 10 months or 2 years. Let's say you haven't done everything perfectly, right? Nobody's perfect. And if there are things that you want to improve upon, start to do them now, right? So, think about what you want the recommender to write in their letter and start doing those things now. Ask your references early. So if you're, let's say, applying within, call it 2 to 2.5 months of a deadline, in case anyone is there, now would be the time to ask. You don't want to wait until, the apps are due in 5 weeks and, I haven't asked my recommender yet. Give them time. They might be late. I might have been boarding a flight from Paris to Boston, coming back from a consulting job when I was applying to school, and my recommender hadn't submitted the letter and it was due before the plane landed. That's stressful. Don't be in that situation, right? Ask them early, make sure that they can do it as early as they can. The last bullet here is that use additional influential or alumni informal notes in some cases. Now, I say this lightly because you don't want to overdo this. I mean, you don't want to send multiple letters, have 4 friends send in letters to Columbia or Wharton to say why you'd be the best person in the world. It's just going to actually work against you. So it'll be a negative. But if you have 1, maybe 2, people that can say some good things about you that are at the school or recent graduates, all things being equal, that might be helpful. If you don't have this, don't worry. Most people don't. Okay, so what makes a good recommendation letter? Specificity, recency, honesty, and detail. So without going into all these words, the specifics are important so that we know how you did what you did and what it really entailed, right? And so having someone that can go into specifics without having it be too industry jargon, I think is important. Recency, what does that mean? Depends on the school, honestly. I mean, some schools, like let's say, Yale School of Management doesn't really like letters that are too old. So if you have someone that's 5 years old, maybe they're not the best recommender. Some schools aren't quite as picky about time, but ideally within the last 2-3 years would be nice. But let's say you're 6 years out and you want a current job and you want a previous job to write your rec letters. That's also okay. If you're applying to an executive MBA program and you have 5 jobs over the course of 13 years, let's just kind of go with like the second 50% of your career. That's what I would say. Honesty is important. This should be a real rec letter, right? And you're not perfect. If you were perfect, you wouldn't be applying to business school. And so you want to have somebody write things that are true and write bad things about you that are also true. So in the critical feedback section, this should be critical feedback. It's not like Billy takes on too much work and he shouldn't work so hard. Have this be honest. Billy is very good at communicating to different groups of people, but he doesn't always read the situation well and understand the perspectives. And sometimes when he's presenting to senior finance folks, it's a similar presentation to the engineering team, and it's not always received properly. Like that's specific and that's honest feedback. It's something that Billy could work on once he gets to Harvard Business School. So again, detail, right? So answer the questions. I can't tell you how often I hear, does my recommender have to answer the questions that, yes, the questions are what they are, right? So if the question is different for your school, the recommender has to actually answer the questions that are being asked. And do not have, the recommender come back to you and say, I can't write it. Why don't you go and write it? I know it happens a lot. I know it happens a lot in India. I know it happens a lot in some other markets. But look, the schools are starting to catch on. I know I've talked with friends. I'm friends with these admission instructors. I've talked with friends who have told me that there have been people that have, let's say, not fared well in getting too involved in their rec letters. They use these language recognition software programs where they compare your writing to, to the recommenders, and it's just not worth it. So have somebody write the letter. If they can't write it, find somebody else. And we can certainly go into more of that offline if you need some help. Okay, so essays, right? So essays, so you've got to brainstorm, you have to outline, we're drafting, we're editing again, we're proofreading. This is the process. The reason I put this down here is it takes time. So if you're applying round 1 and we're, just for those of you watching this later, it's June 28th right now. So let's say if you're applying round 1, and you haven't started your essays, you should get started. You should really get underway. You don't want to wait too long. On average, applicants apply to 6 schools. I mean, it's going to take time to do the work. Always answer the question asked. So just like the recommender has to do, don't try to tell the reader something that you think you want them to know. If they ask a question, it's because they want that question answered. Now, as Millen referenced, okay, if you work with a good consultant, they'll help you to figure out, he mentioned that, like 80-20. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Someone just got into Wharton through the deferred program. Oh, that's exciting. Okay. So they'll kind of tell you, let's say, some of these other things that you need to do. But absent getting advice from a consultant, you really just want to focus on the question that is being asked. Write authentically. ensure that the essay is going to fit with your own story. So there's this broader narrative, right? It's like, who am I? So who is Scott? What is he about? What has he done? What does he like to do? What does he want to do going forward? Where does the MBA fit into this? Make sure that everything you write is part of this broader picture so that we can put all the pieces of the puzzle together and say, here's the applicant that I want, in my classroom. Be succinct. Being wordy is not good. And I'm just rambling here, but I have an hour to fill up, so what the heck. But when you're writing the essays, be succinct. You don't want long sentences. If you got a 40, 45 word sentence, it's hard to get through. It's just hard to read 45 words and to remember what you've said at the beginning of the sentence. So just don't do it. Keep the language approachable. Again, these are real humans, really nice people reading your essays. The goal is not to have some grandiose Pulitzer Prize winning essay that sounds like the most creatively written piece ever. Write a normal essay that a normal person is going to want to read and understand. Now, that said, that recommendation varies a lot based on the school. So if you have a school like Harvard, you do have some, let's say, wiggle room to be a little bit creative, versus a school, I don't know, like if you say Wharton essay 1 about the goals, that's just tell me your goals. Don't start with the story. So most common essay categories: personal story essay, or goals, or why MBA. So these are personal story essays. Harvard, what more would you like us to know as we consider your candidacy? Stanford, what's most important to you and why? You could write whatever you want. I mean, there's no rules here. You don't have to write about classes and clubs and executive speaker series and all that stuff that all the other schools are asking. This is your personal story. So what drives you? Why did you wake up today? What did you want to do? What do you wish you could do? What's one word that describes you? What's one word that a friend would use to describe you, right? These are some of the things you can start to think through if you're trying to get a sense of what your personal story is. What makes you different from others? And what's shaped you? So maybe you've overcome certain things in life. Maybe you haven't. You've been privileged, right? Grew up as a privileged child, and there's really nothing that you have overcome. Okay, so then what? What about you makes you interesting, and would admissions director want to know? And this is where we can come in, right? Because I can look at a list of 10 different things and say, okay, 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, 10, nobody cares about. That's not going to work. Okay, 3 and 4 and 5, that's interesting. Let's dive in. Tell me why you did that. Tell me how you did that. And then from there, we can figure out how to put together a story. So some errors for personal stories that we see: too much detail, right? Taking a step back, getting personal is nice because it allows admissions to know about you, right? And, have a sense of what kind of person you're going to be on campus. But if I'm writing 340 words about, Grandma Berthy, at some point, nobody cares, right? So grandma's not applying to business school. And so if you're saying all these details about the background and the past and all that stuff, at some point, who's applying, right? So focus on you. Focus on what you've done with this stuff. So if there's a lot of personal background that doesn't show how you've been a leader and what you've actually done to succeed, that's not going to be as good. Things that are too vague, or no theme, or even a theme that's, let's say, very common. So one error that I would say is if you come up with hard work and determination. Throughout my life, I've demonstrated hard work and determination, and working hard to overcome obstacles is what matters to me. And then I'm going to tell you a whole story about all the obstacles I've overcome. If you think about who else is applying to school, right? These are really top applicants. They've all overcome things, or they've all worked hard and they've all accomplished. And hearing something like that, tells me that the applicant just didn't have enough sense to pick a topic that's actually going to be differentiated. And so certain things really don't work well. That said, there's so many different topics. I mean, I've done essays about, communication, and you might say, well, that's kind of generic, but the way that it worked and the reason why communication was important to them was super specific and real for them, versus I'm going to tell you my whole story and then fit this theme into it. The idea is not tell me everything about you. It's to tell me something. Okay, so these are some goals essays. So, Booth, how will the Booth MBA help you achieve your immediate, long-term post MBA career goals? What do you hope to gain professionally from the Wharton MBA? What are your career goals over the next 3 to 5 years? And what's your long-term dream job? They made a change this year. They took out imagination, but anyway. So how to answer the career goals essays? Okay, one, goals should be specific and ownable. So the idea behind the goals is to evaluate applicants and make sure that they have some sense and they know what the school is going to allow them to do, and they can be sure that they can accomplish these things once they're on campus. So if you take a big leap, and let's say you're that middle school history teacher and you say, you know what, I love venture capital. Okay. My best friend's in there, my roommate's in VC. I want to go and do venture capital. Jumping from that to VC is something that's going to be harder for a school to, see as being realistic, right? And so it's always this balance between like, well, if I say I'm going to come back and do my exact same job, that's not so exciting, versus going and doing something that's, let's say, leaps and bounds, like, more challenging. Consider the short-term and the long-term goals and the connection point between them. Let's say you want to do entrepreneurship. Should you write about it? I don't know, honestly. I can tell you that I have more clients that do entrepreneurship than those that write about it. It's just sometimes it's hard to sell something where you have no experience in doing it and no real plan and no real details. And what do you write about? That said, you have a history of this, you work for a startup, you have an idea, you're able to sell what you want to do as an entrepreneur, then writing about it can really be a good idea. As you're thinking about this, why MBA essay, right? Try to name some specific classes and programs on campus. Show the school that you know what you want to do and why their school is right for you. And anyway, we can go over more of this if you end up, wanting some guidance. These are just sort of high level overviews. So, so Harvard, what more would you like us to know about you? Okay, so you can talk about an interest, you can talk about a passion, you can talk about something that you've overcome. If you want to discuss work, that's fine. Maybe it's some hobby that's turned into a career. Things that you should think about, right? Make sure the topic is exciting. Make sure that you have a topic, right? It's not, again, you're not throwing everything in here. This should be a little bit more, personal in nature. And, we say you can include career goals and why Harvard makes sense briefly, but we usually don't recommend it. It's just not needed. Now we say you can do it here because technically you could write that and you could get accepted, but it's not something that the school actually wants to see from this essay. The limit is 900 words this year, right? So obviously you can't, exceed it, but it's not a 900 word minimum essay, right? It's 900 max. You write 700 words, 750, 600, it's an amazing essay. Absolutely. Can you get it? For sure. Because they didn't have any length previously. So people got in with shorter essays. Now they said the max is 900. So just don't go above that. Okay. So for Wharton essay 1, what do you hope to gain professionally from the Wharton MBA? Briefly establish some career context, right? Where are you? What have you done? Like, who am I looking at? I see this paper. I see this guy like Ranjit. Like, what has Ranjit done? Like, where is he in the career? So a little bit of context. Then you talk about short-term and long-term goals. You'll talk about Wharton, right, in some amount of detail, and you'll talk about what Wharton's going to do to help you to get there. This is a straightforward essay. You're not getting too creative here. Essay 2 is going to be a little bit more creative, where you have the background. Okay, it's personal, it's professional, it's academic. How are you going to contribute to the campus, to school? And this is where that initial information form you would fill out if we work together, where we can really deep dive in and say, okay, here's what you should write, and here's what you might want to do at Wharton, and guide you to make sure you have the right content. But this is going to be the more personal essay, let's say. Columbia, what are your goals, and what's your long-term dream job? Make sure that your goal is going to be specific. Stay logical, right? So they say long-term dream job, but they don't want to see like, okay, I'm going to be CEO of a Fortune 10 company. That's not the goal here. I mean, long-term is 7 to 10 years out. This is not the ultimate, career plan. So essay 2 is, a little bit interesting. Why do you feel Columbia Business School is a good fit for you academically, culturally, and professionally? So you can do a lot of different things here. I mean, you can talk about, classes and clubs. You can talk about something about New York that interests you. Columbia is in New York, and they like people to like New York. And so this is a standard, like, why is this school right for you? But then you want to connect this to your goals. Now, these are some high-level overviews. Of course, we would go into a little bit more depth if we ended up working together and giving you some examples. But that's how you can think about, the Columbia essay. And the essay 3, I'm going to give you the least guidance here, because this is where, kind of, it's tough to say generally in a webinar. I mean, we'd have to be working with you to say what is right for you. But favorite book, movie, or song, and why it resonates with you. The couple of things I'll say here is, this is a personal essay. It's not about like you being a good reader or having read the most exotic, complicated book that has ever been written. This is, who are you? And what do you want to highlight for the school? Sorry, taking pauses. That COVID shortness of breath is still there. Okay, so save time for some last minute items. They're going to take longer than you think. Short answer questions, they're not always short, so don't wait until the end. If you want to, maybe share your essays with your recommenders. You don't have to, but always ask somebody that doesn't know you to look through your materials and make sure that they're strong. But don't get too many people involved. When we work with clients, we don't work with people that are going to get 5-10 friends, read their essays, and give them all their feedback and edits as well. We just don't do that. I mean, there are too many cooks in the kitchen. Can ruin the meal. So, make sure to have like a small, really, really small sort of contingency of folks, help you, whether it's a consultant and maybe a friend or, a couple of friends or something. So things to avoid, right? Having illogical career goals. So what makes an illogical career goal? I would say a goal that's not really connected to anything you've done in the past, right? So if it's totally out of whack, and you're not connecting the industry, you're not connecting the function, you're not connecting, the type of work that you might do, it could be hard for an admissions director to see, why that goal makes sense to you. If we were in person, I'd say, raise your hands if you, are a doctor, right? And then they raise their hands. I say, explain your transition to her. Telling somebody who's not really in your space is a nice way to see whether what you're saying makes sense. But in general, right, be decisive and specific in the goals. Another pitfall, I talked about this earlier, asking your company's CEO to write your rec letter. You really don't have to. You really just don't have to do that unless you happen to work very closely with the CEO. Next is not including school specifics, right? So avoid vague statements that could only apply, that could apply to any school. Don't compliment a school. What happens when you compliment a school? One of two things. Either one, the school knows they're good. Harvard with the most amazing case method in the world. I really want to go and study there. It's like, who cares? You wasted words. They know they have a good case method. They know that you want to study there. It's Harvard. A lot of people want to study there. So don't write that. Or if you compliment a school that's not really great at something, it shows it's a little bit disingenuous. Show research and interest. Demonstrate why you want to join their unique campuses. And so being as specific as you can is important, and show the value that you want to add. Another thing not to do is to mention a vague reason for wanting an MBA. You want to be clear, like, this is where I am today. These are the things I'm good at. These are the concrete skills that I want to absorb. And here's what I want to do post MBA. And for that to be as tight and clear as it can be. You don't want to write business knowledge or strong fundamentals. That doesn't mean anything. You have to be very clear about what it is that you actually want to do. And then consistency, right? So these are all puzzles. I was doing puzzles with my daughter over the weekend. Her puzzles have bigger pieces because she's a little bit younger. But I'd say yours are small pieces, right? And so there are many different pieces, and they all have to fit together. Admissions directors will review applications, and then they'll review more applications. And at the end of the day, now we have to figure out who we like. So if you have too many different parts of you, it might be hard to be memorable, right? You want to be memorable. So you want to, be the person that has the specific story with the specific outcomes and takeaways and goals. And it's all just sort of wrapped in together. And at the end of the day, if it's not consistent, it won't be as genuine. So our clients go to all the top schools. These are some logos, but US, Europe, Canada, dual degrees, law, public policy, master's analytics, finance. And a little bit more about us and what we do. So we have, of course, comprehensive packages where we're covering the entire process from the brainstorming and on, which I'll get to in a second. We have early planning. Let's say you're not ready to apply yet. You want to apply in a few months from now, or a year from now, or maybe more. We have this early MBA planning package, which is strategic guidance and advice for how you can improve yourself between now and when you apply to school. We have some of the best tutors in the industry. We have a few more spots left now for tutoring. So if you want to sign up for round one, definitely reach out. I'd say sooner than later. In-house software that we use to guide through the sessions with modules and sample questions and thousands of answers. Our tutors are scoring really high. Everybody has 99 percentile, but that technically is 750. So for us, it's even higher. 780 or above usually for our tutors. And of course, a former team of interviewers. So how can we help? Brainstorming, figure out the story. We're developing your school list. We're guiding you through what makes the right sense based on your personality and profile, career fit and chances of getting in, developing the essay, sending you essay guides. We have a pretty robust project management tool that you'll use to help with all the edits. And we do unlimited editing with some of the best editors in the industry. Of course, guide you through recommenders and interviews. This is not the whole process. This is just a quick overview. So if you are interested in working with us, we offer consultations. The consultations are only designed for folks that are looking to hire us. We unfortunately do not offer free consultations just to discuss your profile. We honestly don't have the bandwidth. But if you're looking to hire us in our services, check out our website, check out our rates. And if that interests you, then we'd be happy to schedule a time to talk through this in a lot more detail and also to get to know you a little bit better. So I'll leave it on this page, and then I'll go on to questions now. Okay, so let's see. So what score did you have? I think this was asked about Milland. So Milland did well on the GMAT. So I believe it was north of a 750. How do B schools collect recommendation letters? So when you start an application, you fill out the form, you type in your name and your information and all that stuff. You type in the recommenders, name and contact information, and then the school emails the recommender directly. And so they get a form from the school to fill out. What is the common letter? Yeah, so most schools adopt the common letter, and we're very proud of this. I mean, it was many years in the making with AGAC to get schools to do this, and convincing, because they all used to be different. But a lot of schools have the common rec letter, which is a standard, 2 500-word questions, basically things that you did well and things that you could have improved upon. And so a lot of the schools accept that. Not everybody, but a lot. So you won't need 12 letters to apply to 6 different schools. It depends on your schools, but a lot of them would use the same questions. So what makes you different from others? Is socioeconomic background a valid, interesting answer if it shaped you? I would say maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think it depends what you're doing with this, right? So if you come from, not a lot of money and then you've succeeded and, that's it, I don't think that that's a differentiator. I think that's success. But maybe if you're, creating tutoring and mentorship options for folks and, you've got this nonprofit stuff and this really innovative way to give back to your community, then I think that could be something that would be interesting. Regarding references, can it be a more junior team member? No. So the references would have to come from somebody who is above you. They don't have to be directly managing you. It could be in another group or something like that, but somebody who's above you. The only way it can be somebody who's at your level would be if you're running a startup and your co-founder, the co-CEO or COO or something is at your level, then they could write the letter. He or she could do it. But nobody junior should be writing these rec letters. Got a lot of junk posts here. Okay, I'm like, I can't read those out loud. I don't know where that's coming from. Okay. Okay. So if your goals are actually not connected to your experience, do you change your goal? It's a good question, Jason. Many times I do. Yeah. It just depends on the situation, right? In some cases, it's fine to have a change. Maybe it's connected to your passion. You have a family member that overcame some really debilitating, health issue, and that's driving you to go from core finance to healthcare, and there's a reason. Okay, fine, but otherwise, often we would actually recommend people to change their goals if they're not connected enough. Is there such thing as overly specific in the application? Yes. Yeah, there is, because you only have so many words. And so if you get so detailed about the nitty gritties of what you do or the job or, whatever it is, then at the end of the day, you have to think about, does the admissions team really need to see that? Do they want to read that? So yes, there definitely is the chance of being overly specific. And that's like hard. I mean, it's hard for me to answer that now. We'd have to work together so that we can help you. But yes, you don't want to be too detailed. I'm a lawyer who wants to do an MBA. What should I add in my essays for why MBA? Well, I mean, we'd have to discuss that. That's kind of an open-ended, broad question. I don't know, what do you want to do in your career? I mean, we have a lot of lawyers that we work with. Sometimes people want to stay in law, but understand business better so they can be more impactful and can be stronger, more thoughtful lawyers, more knowledgeable lawyers. But other people want to leave law and they say, hey, I've had enough. And rather than just, advising folks on, their decisions and making sure that they do the right things, I want to, create businesses and run business from the beginning so that I can really, drive something from day one rather than just, advising along the way. Now, what's your reason? I don't know, but, there's certainly different options that you could be considering. How can candidates who come from non-traditional backgrounds leverage that in their application? So it's a good question. I mean, we have a lot of folks that come from non-traditional backgrounds, and so many that in some cases it's not really that non-traditional, it's just a different background. But what we like to see is the key things that they've developed in that role. So maybe you don't have a lot of analytics. You're not in investment banking, but guess what? You're on the phone all the time. You're really talking to people. You're connecting. You're a fundraiser at a nonprofit, and your social skills, your interpersonal skills are so good. You could teach me how to be a better presenter. You can help your classmates think about presenting to others. You can be a strong leader. You can be a strong speaker, a voice for the school. All of a sudden, you're sounding really good and really attractive to these schools, because these are things that are going to be helpful for the school. And, but I don't know if that's you at all. I mean, maybe I said that and you say, who's this crazy guy? He's not talking about me at all. Everybody has their own different, unique things that make them a little bit more interesting. And if you're non-traditional, then maybe you're focusing on that, some of these areas that do make you a little bit different. Okay. How critical is your reason for doing an MBA? Often MBA is just the next step in one's career rather than the only logical next step. Well, I think it's very important, honestly. I mean, I think yes, it can just be logical. So consultants, okay, let's take management consultants. I mean, we have a lot of those, and they're doing an MBA because they're going to go back to McKinsey or Bain or Deloitte or whatever. They're going to pay for the MBA, then they're going to rise up in their career. But if you say that, you'll probably get rejected, right? I mean, because that's not a good answer. You have to say something that's a lot more specific. So what are you going to learn in the MBA to help you in the career? And so maybe there's certain skill sets or things that you don't, have that you want to do, better at. And, those could be the things that you might want to focus on. So even if it is just the next step, there are definitely things that, you'll absorb. And those are the things that you want to be kind of thinking about. Okay. Also, realistically, how much weightage does GMAT have in the application process? Realistically, since all schools say it's just one small component, my honest opinion. So I don't think it's a small component by any means. I don't know that admissions directors say it's a small component. It's a component. I think it's very important. Yeah. I mean, look, it's competitive. So, especially I'm going to guess from the name that, you might be from India. I mean, the scores are high. Everybody does well. So like if you roll in there with like a 700 GMAT, and guess what? All your friends have 750s, 740s, even though it's one component, it could be the component that you aren't as strong. And then they might just not take you because of that. So it's not that it's like there's no rules. I mean, we send people with low scores to schools, and people with high scores don't get into schools. So it's definitely not a exact equation, but I think that GMAT's important. I mean, it's one level playing field where they can evaluate you and see how you compare to others. That said, there's a range. So if you're in the range and they love everything else about you, then it's fine. If everything else is not amazing, and you're like at the very high end of the range, okay, then maybe that's great. Let's say everything else is not amazing professionally, and you're like at the lower end of the range. Well, that's where, it might not work out. How important is it to justify applying to a particular business school versus saying that all these schools are good enough and I don't have any differentiated reason for applying to? Yeah, so that's important. I mean, that's really important. You need to have those reasons. Whether it's in the essay or in an interview, you have to be clear about why that school is right for you. And if the school doesn't ask you that in the essays, it's probably going to be talked about in the interview. So at some point in this process, you'll need to be very laser focused and clear about why that school is right for you. And if not, that could impact your chances of getting in. Okay. My son is a mature accountant with significant work experience over 10 years. Those applications for full-time programs be considered with M7 business schools. So I would need to look at the resume offline to fully answer that. I can say that 10 years of experience or more does make it a lot harder to get into the M7 schools. Do they take some people? Yes, but that certainly would make it harder. So I would need to look at the profile offline. Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for coming as well. So here's one: round 1 versus round 2 versus round 3. Look, round 1 is the best. If you're here, you're thinking about it, do round 1. Round 2 is, almost as good, but for some schools, it can be harder. I mean, it can be a lot harder for some schools. Other schools, it's not that different. But look at where we are in the world, right? Is a recession coming? In a recession, more people apply to school. So will those people come in by round 2? Will they come in by round 3? Will it be next year? These are unknown. These are things that I'm talking to deans about, honestly. And I'll talk about it in my conversation this afternoon. It's a really interesting time. And I think, as more and more people lose their jobs, they might now start to apply to, business schools. So, okay. So do you browse MBA focused peer-to-peer type forums where applicants talk to each other? If so, is the advice generally well-informed? I would say no. The blind leading the blind is not, it's not my recommendation. So yeah, in general, I think these sites are, I would just stick to, now if you have like a professional, top rated consultant, that's going to tell you what to do, fine. But just like another applicant, I mean, they might be just as, informed as you, I would say. What GMAT score range should one get? So, yeah. So anything about like numbers and stuff, I can't answer here because I don't know anything about you specifically. So that's going to be, tough to answer on a call like this. You got to know where you are relative to others. Are you, overrepresented demographic? What's your GPA? How's the work experience? And that sort of things. But, okay. So top things to consider for an INSEAD application. Yeah, so we do a lot of work with Europe. I mean, INSEAD, they're looking for that global exposure. Okay, looking for those language abilities. you're going to be more independent in Europe. And so they want to know that you have an ability and a history of driving success on your own, and that you've thought globally in your life and career so far. The other thing to consider for an in-state application is to start last month. The essays are really long. It's going to take you a while. So, get on that as soon as you can. That would be, my advice for the INSEAD application. Please provide your email, for the offline review of CV. So our website is www.personalmbacoach.com. So that's our website. And if you are interested in working with us, let me know. So we do consultations for folks that are looking to hire us for our services. So that's what we're offering. And if you're interested in that, check out our packages and prices, and we'd be happy to help. Does having work acts only in government sector put one at a disadvantage? No, I would say no. They take people from around the world, right? From well-rounded backgrounds, from rather a well-rounded class with people from different backgrounds. You've got government, you've got family business. I mean, I have a lot of family business clients, especially in India. I have social sector. I have, of course, like banking and finance. Fortune companies. So I wouldn't say it's a disadvantage at all. I would just say that you have to be clear about what you've done, and it might be harder for a school to understand, you versus others. What's the turnaround time for essay drafts at our firm? Yeah, so we send content back within 2 days, and that covers the weekends. So pretty fast. Working 7 days a week, and that's very important. You'll get things rather quickly. You send an email within 24 hours or so, you would get a reply. And typically calls are within a couple of days. We'd schedule those calls as well. So can I elaborate on 9 to 10 years experience being tough for M7 schools? Yeah, so the average is 5 years of experience. And as you get older, it becomes a little bit just harder to get in. So it's not that you can't get in, but it becomes a little bit more challenging. So they don't need as many people with more years of experience. I'll actually try to pull up something to share. Let's see, school research. I think it's right here. HBS age distribution. Okay, so I'm going to share this screen if this works. And let me try to zoom in as well. Okay, so I'm going to share this screen. Let's see, stop share screen. And you'll actually see, let's see the window. Yes. Okay. Let's see. So is it back now? Okay. Yeah. So now this is old, right? And this is, from 2015 to 2017. So this is a little bit of an old chart. Undergrad degree, or so people that, classes of 2015, 2017. And you see, the most common, this is for Harvard. Harvard trends a little bit younger than others, but, 4 years of experience is the most common. You're at 9 and 10, you don't have a lot of people. And so they just don't take a lot of people that have more years of experience. Now, that said, they do take some. And, some of this is self-selection. Fewer people, actually apply as well. So, anyway, so here we go. Now let's go back to this other window. This, okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, and I think I'm sharing the other screen too. Okay, so how do I gain the best prospects for a scholarship? What is Harvard? So Harvard doesn't have any merit-based scholarships, so they only have need-based. But for other top schools, you want to have great essays. That's why hire us. I mean, we got $6.5 million for clients last year. So if you want to make money, hire us. We'll make money. You'll get more money with us than you will, applying on your own or with another place. But then have a really good test score too. So it's like a good application, strong contribution to the community, and a good test score. For part-time MBA, if I want to switch careers, what's the best possible explanation for keeping the current job? So if you're going to keep the current job, which is advisable if you're doing a part-time MBA, you just talk about how you want to rise up, within that job. what you want to be doing, specifically there. I wouldn't say that my long-term goal is to switch. Is that my goal is to switch jobs, but I'm not going to do it right away. I would just have one plan, right? And if the plan is to stick at the company, because that's going to be a strong plan for you, and it's going to make sense with your profile, then I would do that. In my undergrad, I've had several tech publications, high impact factor. Should I mention that on a resume? Yeah, I think that's a good idea to mention. My wife tells me about her publications with impact factors too. She's in medicine, so I think that's definitely a good idea. Just don't devote a ton of space, but you can devote a little bit. So we, to be honest, we don't report acceptance rates for us by school. I'll tell you, we have the best. I mean, our numbers are the best in the industry. I can't imagine anyone sending more folks to a lot of these schools are doing better. You can look me up and see what we do and how many people we send to these schools and that sort of thing. But we don't formally report it by school because then it's kind of like mixed incentives. I mean, let's say that the person gunning for Stanford with like a 660 GMAT, they really want to apply. If I have to report my Stanford admit rate, then I'm going to tell them not to apply to Stanford. And I don't want to do that, right? Because I want to do what's best for everybody, which in some cases is to let people take risks, as long as they have some schools that are a little bit safer. So we don't report anything by school. And for places that do, I would be very, very worried because you can manipulate those. I mean, I can just, for 1 year, I can just only take people that are like really good and then say, oh, my Harvard acceptance rate is X%. It's all fake. I think overall, you just kind of want to get a sense of what people do and where people go to. I mean, most people are going to top schools that are working with us. So if you're looking for a top school, we can definitely help you. But talk with us, and we guarantee everybody's happy that's working with us. It's a very transparent process, and we very much review and analyze applicants as well. So like, I won't get on a call with somebody until I see all your stats, I see your background, I see what schools you're applying to, see if it's a realistic option. Okay, so if you have 10 years of experience, is it better to go for EMBA? Yes. Yeah, EMBA is better if you have more than 10 years of experience. But we do more than 10 years still with full-time. So that's where, it just kind of depends. We can talk about it. But without knowing more about you, executive is going to be a little bit easier to get. Okay. So last question. Since I've worked in a company for a longer duration, over 6 years, should I mention the impact of my work in detail? Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, if the job is there's just one job, so you don't want to take the real estate to write like 4 different jobs, then yeah, you go into more depth as far as what you did and how you've succeeded. So thank you everyone for your amazing questions, the excitement. I wish everybody the best of luck. Stay safe, stay well, and if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out and let us know. And visit our website. We have a lot of downloadables, have a lot of guides. You can see videos. I interview admissions directors. I interview heads of other programs at schools. Subscribe to the GMAT Club YouTube channel, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. Visit GMAT Club's other webinars here, and reach out if you have any interest in working with us. And even if you don't, just browse our site and just download some guides and kind of check things out. Thanks, everybody. Best of luck.